Welcome back, class. Today we're going to be looking at subtracting polynomial expressions, and this is section 4.3. So for this problem, we want to find the difference between the two trinomials. Now I know that this is a subtraction problem because if you look in between the parentheses, you'll see a subtraction sign. So this subtraction problem is a lot different from an addition problem because you can't just drop the parentheses. With any subtraction problem, the first step is to take that negative or the minus sign and distribute it in. If we look at the first trinomial, we're not distributing anything in because there's nothing on the left side of our parentheses. That said, let's go ahead and just drop the parentheses. So that's y squared plus y minus 1. Now, if you look at our second trinomial, notice how on the left side we have that negative. Go ahead and distribute that negative in. Distribute it to each term inside of the parentheses. We have the negative times negative 2y squared. We know that a negative times a negative is a positive, so that's going to be positive 2y squared. Okay, now let's go ahead and distribute the negative again, but this time to y. The negative times y, well, a negative times a positive is going to be a negative. That's negative y. And finally, the negative times 1 is negative 1. Now that we've distributed the negative, let's go ahead and combine like terms. So I know that y squared and 2y squared are like terms. Y squared plus 2y squared is 3y squared. Now our next set will be y. We have y minus y. Y minus y will cancel each other out. That's going to give us 0. There's no need for you to write 0. So go ahead and just cross those out. And finally, we have negative 1 minus 1. Negative 1 minus 1 is negative 2. The answer to this problem is 3y squared minus 2. Now let's look at a U-try. Find the sum or difference. Let's look at problem A. Do you know which operation to use? Well, if you don't, all you have to do is look at the sign between the parentheses. And if you look at the symbol between the parentheses, notice how it's a plus sign. And because we're adding, we're going to drop the parentheses and just combine like terms. Okay, now let's combine like terms. We have 4y squared plus 12y squared, which is 16y squared. We also have negative y minus 3y, which is negative 4y. And finally, positive 2 plus 7, that's going to give us positive 9. And our answer is 16y squared minus 4y plus 9. Now let's look at problem B. Which operation are we going to use for problem B? Are we going to add or are we going to subtract? If you don't know, go ahead and look between the parentheses to figure out what's there. And if you look between the parentheses, you'll see the negative. Okay, so with any subtraction problem, don't forget to distribute that negative into the second trinomial. So if you look at the first trinomial, you'll notice that there's nothing on the left side of the parentheses, which means that at this point we can go ahead and just drop the parentheses. That's negative z to the third minus 2z minus 1. Now look at the second trinomial. Once again, we have that subtraction. Think of it as a negative. Go ahead and distribute that negative in. Negative times negative z to the third is positive z to the third. A negative times a negative is a positive. And the negative times positive 2z is negative 2z. And the negative times 1 is negative 1. Now that we've distributed the negative, let's combine like terms. So we have negative z to the third plus z to the third. Remember, we want to write our answer in standard form. So when we combine like terms, we want to look for the variable that has the biggest exponent. So negative z to the third plus z to the third is actually 0. They cancel out. Our next set is negative 2z minus 2z. Negative 2z minus 2z is negative 4z. And finally, negative 1 minus 1 is negative 2. The final answer is negative 4z minus 2. So in this problem, we have two variables, a and b, and we want to find the difference between our two polynomials. If it didn't tell us to find the difference, we would have to look between the two parentheses to figure out what to do. And if we look between the two parentheses, we'll see that we are actually subtracting. Okay, so let's go ahead and subtract. If we look at the left side of our first polynomial, we see that there's nothing on the left side of our parentheses. So at this point, I'm just going to drop the parentheses and rewrite this as 2ab minus b plus a. In our second polynomial, we have the negative in the front, so let's go ahead and distribute that negative in. The negative times 2b squared is negative 2b squared. The negative times b is negative b. And the negative times a is negative a. The negative times 4 is negative 4. So now let's combine like terms. When I have two variables, writing my answer in standard form doesn't really matter. So at this point, I'll go ahead and just combine like terms. I have the 2ab, and then so now I need to look for a term that also has a and b together. Now if we look through each term, we'll see that none of the terms have a and b together. So the 2ab is just 2ab. Let's move on to the next set. That's negative b, and here's another negative b. Negative b minus b is negative 2b. Moving on, we have a minus a. A minus a is 0. Next set, negative 2b squared. Well, I can't combine that with anything else, so I'll go ahead and write negative 2b squared. And finally, we have that minus 4 that we can't add to anything else. So go ahead and just drop that down. Our final answer is 2ab minus 2b minus 2b squared minus 4. Another problem that I want to look at is this one right here. It says the length of the sides of a triangle are 12x plus 3 meters, 15x minus 4 meters, and 23 meters. Find the perimeter of the triangle. With any word problem, the best approach is to draw the figure. So we're going to draw the triangle. Here it is. So I have my triangle, and now I'm just going to label the sides. So one side is 12x plus 3 meters. The length of the second side is 15x minus 4 meters. And the length of the third side is 23 meters. In the problem, we want to find the perimeter of the triangle. The perimeter is simply the distance around the triangle. So to find the perimeter, just add up all the sides. Let's start with the 15x minus 4. And I don't have to write m until the very end because once again, m represents the distance around the triangle. So 15x minus 4 plus, and I'm going clockwise here, 12x plus 3 plus 23. Now I want to combine like terms, and because we're adding, all we need to do is drop the parentheses and add. So we have 15x minus 4 plus 12x plus 3 plus 23. Now let's combine like terms. 15x plus 12x is 27x. Negative 4 plus 3 is negative 1. Negative 1 plus 23 is positive 22. Now that we're done, let's go ahead and write our unit. We know that the triangle is measured in meters. So I'm going to put parentheses around my binomial and put the m next to it. Once again, the m represents the distance around the triangle. So the perimeter is 27x plus 22m. Let's go ahead and look at this problem. It says if 12x squared minus 3x plus 2 is subtracted from negative 7x squared plus 5x minus 2, what is the coefficient of x in the result? So if I asked you, this is a side note, if I asked you, subtract 2 from 7, how would you do it? Is it 2 minus 7 or is it 7 minus 2? Well, if you look at it, we're taking 2 away from 7. So the correct way to write it is 7 minus 2, which is 5. Now we're going to take that concept and apply it to what we have. We want to take 12x squared minus 3x plus 2 and subtract it from the negative 7x squared plus 5x minus 2. Which means that when we rewrite the problem, the negative 7x squared plus 5x minus 2 is going to come first. And from that trinomial, we're taking away 12x squared minus 3x plus 2. We're subtracting. If you look at the first trinomial, on the left side of the parentheses, there's nothing there, so let's go ahead and just drop the parentheses. Write this as negative 7x squared plus 5x minus 2. In the second trinomial, we have the negative on the left side of our parentheses, so let's go ahead and distribute that negative in. Negative 12x squared, and then the negative times negative 3x is positive 3x, and the negative times positive 2 is negative 2. Now let's combine. So negative 7x squared minus 12x squared is negative 19x squared. 5x plus 3x is 8x. And negative 2 minus 2 is negative 4. When we subtracted the two trinomials, we got negative 19x squared plus 8x minus 4. However, we're not done, because if you read the problem, it wants us to find the coefficient of x in the result. The word coefficient represents the number that goes in front of x. So the coefficient of x, this is what we want to look at. The coefficient of x is simply 8. Coefficient of x is 8. And so the final answer is 8. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe to my channel.